All right. Hello, ladies. Welcome. Thank you so much. Sorry, Kelsey, I was having a little bit of issue getting you on stage, so I apologize for that.
No worries. That was my fault too, probably.
Oh, no, you are all good. Well, I am so excited to kick off this panel. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Kaelyn, Kelsey, or Jean, so Kaelyn is one of my favorite YouTubers right now. Love all of your YouTube content. She also is the co-founder of a community called the Accepted Society. So for individuals that are in pursuit of their PhD, writing their dissertation, writing their theses, she helps them from that, like that whole process. And it has a support group for people that are pursuing their PhD. Jean has a cohort-based business called Path to PM for project managers, and has spent the majority of her career in tech, and is now using that expertise and pivoting to launch her own business. And she's also a LinkedIn expert. And so definitely go check out Jean's content on LinkedIn. And Kelsey has launched a community called Whole Life Nurse. And she has a nursing background and has built a community to help nurses find other paths to income. Which I think is beautiful. So I love each of your communities and how different and diverse they were. And when I was putting together this panel, I wanted to have people that had different types of communities. You each serve such different members. So before we dig into the nitty-gritty on building engagement and building onboarding for your communities, I would love for you to share a little bit of your why and the moment that you decided that you wanted to start a community. And Kelsey, let's start with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Alexis, for having me. Whole Life Nurse kind of started sort of by accident. I think when I got started in the entrepreneurship world, I didn't really know that you could monetize all this stuff online. I was a nurse. I was a brand new nurse. I worked really hard to build my quote unquote, what I thought was my dream career. But when I went into the nursing world, I slowly learned that the professional world was not as professional, and, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I started just kind of taking to the online world. This is 10 years ago when social media was brand new. I remember when the Instagram app came out, I was like, this is just so silly. You're just posting photos, and now look at it now, And what I did is I just started kind of sharing my journey and my feelings as a registered nurse. And I was putting it out on the internet, and this was before the algorithm. So this is a time when you could make a blog and hundreds of thousands of people would share it within a week. It was insane. I could kick myself for not having an email list at that time. But basically I started just sharing how I was navigating my career, and I started sharing the issues and struggles emotionally and physically of being a bedside nurse. And I started experimenting with learning about all the jobs that were out there. And I also realized, I was like, man, I don't really think this is going to be my long-term career. And I started dabbling in side hustles, and I was just sharing my journey out of just the love of my heart. Wasn't making a single dime. I did this for years, you guys. Like, I just started sharing what I love, and it started resonating with people. And then I had people reaching out being like, hey, can we advertise with you? Can we do this and that? And I started to kind of realize this online thing is a business opportunity. And I started really leaning into online creators similar to Jay. Amy Porterfield is someone I follow a lot. And Marie Forleo at the time was a big one. And I started to learn how I can monetize these pain points that these nurses were having. And not so much how can I monetize, but how can I make an income while making an impact doing what I loved. And that's when I started discovering the digital online world and creating courses, which ultimately down the road led me to creating a membership, which led me to Circle. And, now I teach nurses how to find healthier, non-traditional careers outside of the bedside, and also how to make income on the side. And so that's kind of where my journey came from. So
I love it. I love how personal it was to you too. And like going from sharing your personal life to then turning into the guide for other people who are wanting to do something similar. Jean, what about you? What was your why in the moment that you were like, okay, I need to start this accelerator program and help other people become project managers?
Ooh, thank you. And Kelsey, your story, I'm like, oh, even though we have different niches, I'm like, I resonate with your why. It's very similar. So it's really cool that Alexis, you're bringing together these people, and we get to create this own sense of community too. So with me, kind of similarly, it started with like, I didn't see a lot of content around like project management or this like program management career path, which I've done for a while now. And like, I've just had a lot of fun with it. And it started with somebody just asking me, DMing me, hey, Jean, how did you break into your field, right? How did you get to work at some of these tech companies without the traditional background? And then I guess that was like that idea, right? How can I fill a need? And is this something that I feel compelled to build a service around? So it started with just coaching, one-on-one coaching. And then I created guides, and then I started sharing my journey on LinkedIn. And I never thought that I would be like a LinkedIn person or an influencer. Like I looked up to people like Justin Welsh, like he's the guy, like the GOAT, right? I never thought I would be somebody who would ever leave my corporate job to do this full time, but it did just start with that passion to help. And then when you explore it and you give yourself grace to explore it, you kind of figure out, okay, do I want to do a lead gen magnet? Do I want a newsletter? Do I want to create a community? But that was never the end goal. It was just something that was starting off with something very small that I iterated over time. And then kind of, Kelsey, to your point, it made me realize this is a lucrative business model. So for me to then leave my corporate career, I'm like, okay, there's something here that I can build for myself, and kind of the rest is history.
I love it. Very similar stories with your expertise, all three of you. And I think that's another kind of common thread from this conversation and from the summit. And for those of you listening, pivoting, like taking the expertise that you've built, pivoting, maybe you've built an audience, and you can always pivot your career. And we have that choice all the time. It's just like opening up the mindset and realizing, oh, okay, there's other options for me. Kaelyn, what about you? What is your why and kind of that moment that you realized you wanted to start Accepted Society?
Yeah, so I started on YouTube. I think the why of why I started on YouTube has a common thread with why I started Accepted. And it was that I wanted to see other creators online showing what the experience of going through academia, building a career in academia was like. And there just wasn't anybody there. And I just decided that, you know, if I'm looking for this resource, I'm sure there's others that are also looking for these resources. So I will be the first to produce it and hope that others follow. And it was during the pandemic, during 2020. I had just started my PhD. I missed being around my friends, being in the library. I felt very isolated. And I just wanted to be around other people. And so I started putting up these study sessions, and people could like pay to just come and hang out on Zoom and study together. And I basically just wanted to create the resource that I myself was looking for. I really wanted people to connect with. And so I figured that there were others that were in a similar position. And so it kind of started with just these study sessions, and then the demand grew and more people started joining them. And then people were asking for like a chat space and ways to communicate with one another. And so we joined, like we had a community on Slack, and then that evolved to a community on a community platform. And now we've been on Circle for about 9 months, and like we've doubled our membership. And it's really about kind of combating the isolation that academia often dictates in a way, like the way that we do our work. But also I wanted it to be a space where anybody can be an academic, anybody can find that connection and those resources and feel that if they love knowledge, if they love education, that they are a scholar, that they can, you know, regardless of their institution, regardless of their education, can find this group of people that really care about education as well. And so it's kind of an open community whereby, you know, I just want people to feel a sense of belonging and feel a sense of that they are part of this community, regardless of their background.
I love that. Such a powerful why and a beautiful pivot to building belonging. And so each of you have onboarded members, and, you know, the journey from follower to community member is something that as a community builder, I know you each take so seriously. So I'm curious how you've built those first few onboarding steps so that when someone comes into your community for the first time, or Jean, in your case, takes your program, that they're immediately met with connection. You're kind of walking them through how to make the most of the experience. So any strategies or tips that you can give individuals watching who want to do something similar, but are kind of worried of like, I know maybe how I want to launch, but then what? Like, how do I actually get them to engage with each other? And Kelsey, let's start with you.
Yeah, I love this question. And I think a lot of times it's trial and error when you're first getting started. Like the journey of my membership was, the first year was like, is this something that's going to work? Will I get people into my membership? And then I felt like towards the end of the first year and into the second, now we're going on 4 years right now, was working on retention strategies. I feel like retention's a whole other ballgame, but that's a very underrated metric with memberships. So when I was bringing people into the membership, part of retention is having a good onboarding process so that when they get in, they're not overwhelmed with what is all this stuff. That's the beauty of memberships, is it's sort of like this, come and take what you need. Sometimes there are roadmaps. Sometimes it's, a direct outcome depending on how your membership is built. But what I did was I realized that my members needed a touching point with me or someone who was an extension of me to feel like they were actually involved in a real community and connected to people. Yes, they can come to live coaching calls. But we added an onboarding call. So every member who comes into my membership, which is called Crafting Your Dream Career, you'll hear me refer to it as CYDC, they get an onboarding call. And I actually got to a point where my membership was generating enough income to where I could hire somebody to do these onboarding calls for me. And that was also really hard too, as a creator, to relinquish that control. But I have an amazing community manager and people love her. But what I've done is I've implemented those onboarding calls. So from a perceived value standpoint, buying into the membership, knowing that they're going to have somebody to handhold them once they come in is a really valuable piece that you can offer with a membership. So that can look like, when you're getting started, it can look like one monthly onboarding call offering done by you to make it easy, where it's like, hey, once a month you can come in and I'm going to do these onboarding calls. So when you're just getting started, I think that's a really good strategy. If you eventually want to hire out and have someone do it on the weekly, if you're having a lot of people come in, that can be helpful as well. So my onboarding process looked like having a welcome call for people coming in. I ended up creating roadmaps based off of the two routes that nurses like to go. It's either land a healthier non-traditional role or launch a side hustle as a nurse. They also can opt in to come in to do both. But we have roadmaps, and now Circle's you guys have just done so amazing with it used to be a Google Doc. Now I can actually hashtag and can tag the actual modules within the membership. And that's been beautiful. And now we have workflows, which has taken it up a whole other notch. I was a beta member with Circle. I started back as an OG, so I didn't have all those features. But that's been I would say, between the onboarding calls where they're getting a touch with somebody representing my membership, and then the roadmaps. And then I do have ongoing weekly calls as well. I feel like that really has not only just from a customer standpoint made them very satisfied and happy, but from a retention standpoint, it's really allowed them to trust staying around long term. So that's my 2 cents on that one.
Love it. Love the onboarding touch points. We do at Circle, we do weekly orientation onboarding sessions in a group setting. So maybe if you can't do them one-on-one, having them in a group setting. I love that, Kelsey. Jean, what about you for the Path to PM Accelerator program, getting new members in, welcoming them in?
Yeah. And I love that I'm getting ideas even for myself, like even for onboarding, right? Like hiring someone to do that, or creating office hours or more group environment friendly formats to do it. So I'll just lead with the headline, which is doing these things that don't scale. So I'm still in a place where my community is still very intimate and I love being leaned in. So I would say instead, in lieu of the onboarding live component, I have live sales calls or closing calls with each of my members. And that has helped me really understand What are their pain points? What are they looking for? What stage of their career are they in? So that I can kind of tailor and massage the program for them. And I think that has helped drive engagement because I'm so clued in on what they need. And then I couple that with some more streamlined onboarding steps. In Circle, I'll have like a demo video of how to navigate, where to go, what it's used for. So that's been really helpful. And then, yes, in those weekly touch points, those calls, I can reinforce or create space for them to ask questions, what's working, what's not working, and then kind of iterate and revise as needed. So I would say that hybrid approach has been really helpful. And yeah, I think just kudos to Circle for making it very easy for me to kind of see where people are in each of the stages. And then similar to like a roadmap that Kelsey mentioned, but a progress tracker, and then me having access to that progress tracker with like estimated due dates and whatnot. And then having a previous alumni who's like my community manager at the moment too, like checking in who is pacing through as intended. And if they're not, like what are some touch points that we can have to check in on them and see what support they need.
I love the progress tracker and like maybe their first 30 days to be able to track where they are. And if they're off track in a way, you can kind of lean in a little bit more, get on a call with them. That's great. Kaelyn, what about you?
So we have two methods. So we have what we call like the overall community, and then we have sub-community programs. So with the overall community, because it's relatively low ticket, because the goal is for it to be as accessible as possible, there is some kind of simple onboarding steps, but what we actually want for members coming in is for them to immediately engage in the study sessions and to engage in the community. One thing I think that we've done really well over the last 9 months, but we switched to a community first model. So actually my team and myself included are actually relatively pulled out of the onboarding process. The reason being that we want members to actually immediately interact with another member. And we want other members to be the thing that they connect to and that they can build those long-lasting friendships and they can attend the study sessions and find their regular cadence. Whereas our sub-community programs that are a little bit more of a high-ticket item, which are focused specifically on an outcome. So for example, we have our PH Done program, which is a dissertation coaching program for PhD students. We're launching a fellows program, which is for independent researchers to develop a publishable article. In which case, then when they enter that program, they do have an onboarding call with one of the major coaches for that program. And on that onboarding call, we also walk them through a personalized Notion dashboard that we create for everyone that has all of the different tools that you're going to need in order to, finish the program and to also maintain and track your progress. So similar to the process that Jean uses. And what we do is that they'll have office hour touch points about once a month. And in those office hours, we will go into that Notion dashboard and check in with them and have, a way of visibly tracking their progress. And so ultimately, the goal is to have a wider community onboarding process and then a more intimate onboarding process when somebody goes into a sub-community program.
I love that. Each of you, in a way, whether it's you or your team, are also what I'm hearing is you're having conversations, or at least you're tracking and monitoring conversations. And I think that when you can do that, when someone first joins, you're able to collect so much data and information on how to tweak your programming, even tweak the onboarding process based on the questions that someone's asking. So I love that you've each found your own specific, custom, personalized way of interacting with your members so that you can also take in that feedback. I have a specific question for Kelsey around actually all of you, but for Kelsey, with nurses, they are in a time constraint, right? So I'm curious, how do you position your programming where it's not too time intensive, but it kind of serves them right when they need it, but it doesn't require a lot of their time, especially if they're working like night shift and they're working 12, 14-hour days?
Oh, yeah. This is a big thing. And this has been sort of not so much a challenge, but something I've had to adapt to in building my business is majority of the world is working 9 to 5s. That's like what majority professions are. And then you have rare professions like nursing, where most nurses are on a 12-hour shift. So it's actually funny when I send out my emails, full disclaimer, I send them out at 6 o'clock in the evening, because I have learned that 6 p.m. is when, at Eastern Standard Time, is when my nurses open their emails the most. Now we have AI built-in programs that are now targeting based off of what the individual is opening their emails at. But it's different because you're always told send it at 9 in the morning. But that doesn't work for my nurses, because my nurses at 9 in the morning are passing meds, running codes, wiping butts, and doing all the other things that they do, So I've actually, I added live calls to my membership. That's one of the biggest bread and butter portions of my membership, or my live weekly calls. And it was really interesting because initially I started those calls at 3 p.m. and I got a lot of feedback, and I would have people emailing me when I would launch, and they would be like, I really want to join this membership, but I can't make it to those 3 p.m. calls. I work 12-hour shifts, or I work 9 to 5 in an office. So one thing that I did, which greatly increased my average customer lifetime, was adding an 8 o'clock call. So I have an 8 p.m. call that a lot of people get to, and that, whether or not they show up, and those of you guys who are running memberships now, you might see that you have hundreds, even thousands of people in your membership, and just a handful come to these live calls. Just the simple fact that they have the option to come at a time that works for them makes a world of difference when it comes to just investing in a membership or being a part of it. So that's kind of, something that I've had to do, is doing the onboarding calls, adding that in as a perk. We also have 15-minute Get Unstuck calls that my community manager runs, that people can on demand get a 15-minute call based on what they're looking for. And they can either send a voice message in text in Circle. Love the voice message feature, by the way. Or they can actually book a Zoom call with my community manager. That's built into what I pay her monthly. And not a ton of people take advantage of it, but it's there. So in the event there's somebody who can't make it to the live calls at either of the times, or they missed it, they still have this option to do something more personalized. So I've had to really just figure out, like I said, the first year was like, is this working? Can I get people in here? And the second year was, how do I get them to stay around? And that was part of adding these Unstuck calls, adding the onboarding calls, adding the 8 o'clock call, and really getting an idea. Nurses are busy. They're rational buyers. They're quick. They have little attention span, and, delivering them quick, effective wins is really important. And so I would say that that's kind of what I've done to really just meet the need of, I work crazy 12-hour shifts. Give me options that I can at least attend once a month or something. And that's that's what we did. So, and that's so far been working.
I love it. I love it. I love that you have framed it as the option. Being a part of the offer makes it a quicker yes for someone, just knowing that they can. Even if they don't take advantage of it, you're still finding a way to position the offer that's exactly for your ideal member. It's beautiful. Right. Kaelyn, question for you. You've talked a lot about getting away from vanity metrics and focusing on more meaningful connections. You've talked about this in your YouTube channel as well as on social. I'm curious how you have crafted meaningful connection touch points within your members so that, yes, you have a large membership, but it's really about the connections that these individuals are making with each other and how you've fostered that.
Yeah. So one metric in particular that we keep track of is members that actually return after a long period where they have left. So we actually have an exit. So we have an enrollment survey and an exit survey. And what we find is that the kind of commonality of people wanting connection is that the reason that they join. And the only reason that they tend to leave, 98% of responses to the exit survey, the only reason that they leave is because at that time they're experiencing financial hardship. And what we found over 5 years of student data is that they almost always come back. Wow. The people that fill out the survey, they say that the reason that they're leaving is just that it's a matter of finances, and that they've had a really positive experience in the community. And they tend to return. And so that's one metric that, isn't as easy to track, but because we have that exit survey data and we can, obviously track when they come back, we can see that lifetime of a member. And for example, we have members that have come back after a year, 2 years, 3 years even, to rejoin the community, in which case they said, well, I had a really positive experience with it before. Maybe I left academia for a while, wasn't really feeling like the membership was what I needed at the time. And so that's one metric that we do track, is the kind of lifetime value of a member that, isn't necessarily continuous. And so we don't see churn as something that's actually necessarily a bad thing. And another way that we gauge it is also having these monthly town halls, in which case we also have members nominate somebody in the community that has really supported them, who has, offered them a helping hand. The other thing that we've also seen in the circle data is how many DMs are shared. So it's not necessarily the messages on the visible public boards, but it's also the conversations in the communities and the support groups that are being fostered and developed by members. One thing that we found when we moved to a kind of community forward model where members are actually leading sessions themselves is that members were also starting to create these small support groups. And so they use like group DMs and whatnot in order to create groups for neurodivergent students or for those that are suffering with chronic illness. And so they have these sub-communities that they're also communicating in. And so a lot of the ways that people are connecting are not actually necessarily immediately visible. And it's not necessarily about, how many members are in the community, but how many members in the community feel safe and they feel like they have people they can go to. And we can see that in the way that, not only do people have a willingness to come back if they ever need to leave, but they also are interacting and making connections where, when we ask, them to shout out somebody that's been a real help to them, they have these like really in-depth, beautiful stories about the ways that others have supported them. And
Wow.
So those are metrics that are hard to track, but, having those stories, having those testimonials where people say how it got them through a really difficult time or it helped them submit their dissertation, and them also being able to point to people in the community itself that are not on my team and say, these people helped me. That's what I look for.
Wow. That's beautiful. I love those examples and the town hall and the nominations of other community members that have supported them. That's beautiful. I hope someone implements that, because I that's such a great example of also, while you're there leading and facilitating the community, it's really about those connections that they're making with each other. That makes it so much more powerful. Okay, Jean, with your expertise at both LinkedIn and Meta, having worked for both of those companies, you have quite the experience in like enterprise level marketing and community building. And I'm curious how you've taken your experience in corporate and applied it to the programming and the way that you've built out Path to PM.
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. And then as I was thinking about this, I was like kind of reliving my glory days as well. And I'm noticing, I have taken some of those things that I've learned, brought it over to this side of the world. So I kind of think of this in a couple of different phases. I'll point 3 of them. The first one is collecting the data. So when Kaelyn said, we have like onboarding surveys and we also have exit surveys. So I implemented both of them as well. And that has been incredibly helpful for me to know exactly like, why are they joining? What do they need help with? Like, what's that sticking point so that I can do more of what works and attract my people? And then the other part is like, just what are the ways that I can try to streamline that process? Like initially it was like me talking to people, getting this intel. But of course, as you scale, you need systems and tools in place. And now I have that, and it's all baked in so nicely in Circle, like that onboarding experience. The key question that I asked, so it helps me understand, okay, what can I be doing better? If there are any gaps or areas where like it's really, really strong, is like the NPS score. So I have a question that says, would you recommend this on a scale, like, would you recommend this course on a scale of 0 to 10? And if it's anything less than a 10, like just be brutally honest what your feedback is. And I love incorporating that because I care about that feedback, and I'm going to review all of them and see if there's opportunity for me to improve the student experience. And then the other part is, I alluded to this earlier, but it's balancing scale with that level of personalization and customer delight. So some ways that I've integrated that, and this is kind of based on me bringing those corporate principles, right? How are we showing up for the customer and making them feel so special, like they're a one of one? And some ways that I do that is like being flexible. Like, Kelsey, I love what you said about how you were like, the time zone, maybe just sending a communication out at this later time to accommodate them. Like, that is something special that you're doing for them. And then similar for me, like, I will do a poll. Okay. I'm thinking between this slot and this slot, who's able to make this slot. So just showing that I'm like very flexible and I want to work with them. The other thing is sometimes I'll just go out of my way. It's not scalable, like I said, but I know it was very meaningful. Like, they're stressing out about the interview that's coming up, or they're really just in their head with like imposter syndrome. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm feeling like really dejected from all of these rejections. I'll give them my number and say, hey, let's hop on a quick call and like workshop this in addition to the weekly calls. And so I've noticed that those like little things, like things that I remember that you have an interview coming up, or like, hey, let's talk through negotiation strategies right now. That part brings me alive. And I know that that's when I have like testimonial calls with students, they let me know and say, hey, Jean, this is why I chose to work with you.
That's beautiful. That like true personal touch, and the fact that you have the memory, but also the availability of like, you're letting your members know that they have access to you. And that's a part of the experience. It's also a part of the investment in working with you. I wish I could talk to all three of you for another hour, but I have time for one more question, and then I would love for you to share where people can follow you and continue to learn from you. We have hundreds of creators live with us right now. If you could give them one piece of advice when it comes to building a community, what would you say? And whoever wants to go first, just go off mute and jump in. Kaelyn, go for it.
I'm happy to go. So one of the kind of core like mottos that I lead with content or with my team at Accepted is lead with generosity. Like, anything that you can find in order to give and hold space and, provide support, finding ways to do that. And it can be big, or, it can be big as, like jumping on a call and having that support time, or, giving somebody additional access, but also just, occasionally just going into your community and reaching out and saying, hey, I just noticed that you've been really active this week, and I just wanted to like say thank you. You being active in this community is indicative of, your own generosity. And I just wanted to, point that out and affirm that I see that. And so, finding ways to lead with generosity as best you can.
I love that. I second that. Who's next?
It's like, I feel like we're at a stoplight. No, you go. No, you go. No, you go. And then we go. Okay. I love that too, Kaelyn. One of my sayings is LWV, lead with value. And not to like literally piggyback off of what you said, but I think that also goes from when you guys are thinking about building a community. And right now, the way social media works, especially I go deeply on Instagram with my brand, is I'm always thinking like, what type of content can I put out that makes people want to save it, share it, or is going to be sent to somebody else or engaged with. So when you guys are thinking, when you're looking at creators online and you see things go viral, it's because most likely these pieces of content are being sent to their friends, or they're saving it for later for reference, or they are engaging with it and liking with it. And so share worthy content. And what's the other one that I said? My pregnant, I'm 22 weeks pregnant, by the way, and I have a 4-year-old at home. So I'm just like pushing through.
You're doing amazing.
My brain doesn't work well, and I'm running this community. But no, and I think like starting messy, I think a lot of people overthink at the cost of doing. And I will tell you guys, I've been coaching nurses, and I've been even coaching friends who are starting businesses online. The people who are the most successful are not the smartest ones. They're not the ones who took the most courses, who have the most certifications, who are better than you are, fancier, cuter, whatever than you are. They're the ones who are the freaking most consistent. They show up every day and they're sharing valuable things, or they're attempting to share valuable things. And my biggest piece of advice is anything you're thinking about putting out into the world that you think might be helpful, just post it, because you never know what's going to take off. You never know what's going to resonate, what's going to go viral. And what I have learned is my business is where it's at, not because I have success every day. It's because I've had really successful pieces of content and really successful products once in a blue moon. But because I've been doing this for 10 years, those very infrequent big successes have compounded over time. And that's where the bulk of my success and income has been made, is just the fact that I've kept going. There is no end point. There is no end journey. I'm not, trying to make it once, if I get to 10K, I've made it. If 20K, I've made it. 30K. No, it is a journey of freaking serving people, trying to be relevant with what's needed for your ideal customer in the season that you're in, putting out valuable content consistently. Consistency is the key, you guys. If you guys are not putting out stuff, and I hate to I don't want to drill this in and be like every day, do the best that you can with the season of life that you're in, but do what you can. If you can only give 50% today, then you're giving 100%. If you gave your 50%, as a mom, I can't do what I did when I didn't have kids and, was growing my business and could spend 9 hours at a coffee shop. I'm not in that phase anymore. I have 2 hours a day to just make as much impact as I can. And what I've learned is that, to be honest, you don't need 9 hours in a day. If you're disciplined with your time and you're focused, 2 hours, even 1 hour, even 15 minutes a day is extremely effective. So start messy, share value, don't overthink it, and stay consistent. And that will lead you into building an amazing audience. And that will easily build trust and make people want to say, this is a no-brainer. I want to join Kaelyn's community, Jean's community, all that good stuff. So that is my advice.
That was beautiful, Kelsey. Coach Kelsey has her hat on. She's taking us to church. Everybody in the chat's incredible. Thank you so much for that energy and that pep talk. I felt it. We were all nodding collectively. Jean, Celine with the gif. I'm dead. Jean,
Kelsey, I just want to say, that's so hard to follow after you. I think you have something in you to be a motivational speaker, like the next Tony Robbins, because that was just incredible.
It's probably my hormones. Let's be honest. Go ahead.
That was incredible. I'll just reinforce this again. It's doing the things that don't scale first, right? Have the conversations. I don't like sales. I'm not good at it. But I know that I have to talk to my customers to create the best product that I can for them, that I need to talk to them to create compelling content that resonates with them, right? It is this visceral cycle. And so, yes, 100%, you have to put yourself out there. Analysis paralysis is a real thing. We get in our head, put it out there, get feedback, talk to customers, and just give yourself grace that it's not going to be perfect, right? It's been sucky when something doesn't land, right? Or you've had to issue refunds, but that is just part of the world that we live in, and just absorb that, right? That's just part of the business, and you're going to find your people. That is the beauty of the community. So just keep doing you and be authentic to how you want your business to be.
Thank you each so much for sharing your heart and the energy. This panel has given me so much life, and I know the people in the chat are also feeling that too. Thank you so much. Can you quickly share where people can find you? And I will, as you're doing that, I will bring Chris Donnelly to stage. Kaelyn, let's start with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on all social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Kaelynn Grace Apple, and acceptedsociety.com to learn more about the accepted community.
Yay. You can find me at Whole Life Nurse. Also, my website is wholelifenurse.com. I've got presence on TikTok, social. It's Whole Life Nurse across all handles. But yeah, wholelifenurse.com. And Kelsey, my Instagram's kind of my big bread and butter. So you guys can follow me over there and get all the deets. So there you go.
Yeah. And then I am mostly on LinkedIn, but you can find me on Instagram as well. It's Jean HK, and I'll drop the link below. And it's so cool, Chris, seeing you, because you're just such a legend on LinkedIn. I've learned so much. So Chris is a badass.
He is.
What's up? How you doing?
Hi, Chris. I'm so glad you're here. Ladies, thank you for leading such a beautiful panel. Learned so much from you.